All right. Thank you very much for the introduction, Kashif. So I'm going to make an agreement with all of you, all right? We are going to do two things today. I'm going to amaze you and then I'm going to provoke you. So you're going to really like me for a while and then you're going to really hate me for a while. And I'm okay with that. So on that note, let's start the talk vibing with your AI. And hopefully you can vibe with me while I am vibing with my AI. All right. So my name is Smit Desai, and I'm an assistant professor over here at CAMD. I have an appointment with art plus design, as well as communication studies and computer science. So as you can see, that did not really fit me into one category. So they had to find multiple categories for my research. And hopefully that reflects in the kind of work that I show you as well. So my talk is called Vibing with Your AI. It's a bit tongue in cheek, but what I do at Northeastern is that I run the CHI lab, which is the Conversational Human AI Interactions Lab. And at CHI lab, we Yeah, and at Chai Lab, we focus on three dimensions of AI research. First of all, we are interested in understanding the mental model of people when they're interacting with conversational AI. And when I say conversational AI, I mean chat-based interfaces like chatbots. I also mean voice agents. I mean LLM agents as well. So if you can talk with something and something talks back to you, I consider that to be conversational AI. And now you might know that conversational AI is everywhere. It's in your phone, it's in your laptop, it's in your computer, it's in microwaves, it's in fridges. I had the lovely experience of going to Japan for Kai last year and had a great conversation with my toilet, which was very enlightening for me. So you can see the depth of conversational AI research and where it can be found. So it's safe to say that conversational AI is everywhere now. And I want to understand how people think about conversational AI. Beyond that, I'm interested in creating conversational interfaces as well. I like to joke that this is the part of my research that gets me money to do everything else. But I create conversational AI in a variety of scenarios like healthcare as well as education. So the goal of creation is basically twofold. I want to support humans that might need conversational AI at various stages of their life. And I also want people to collaborate with conversational AI in high stake decision making. Beyond that, I also want to refine the way we design and research conversational AI, because my big argument point has always been that the way we research and evaluate conversational AI is very much based on how we evaluate and research graphical user interfaces. And I see that as a huge injustice because the modalities are very different and they should be researched and evaluated in a very different way. So that's going to be one of the big pitches of this research. Uh, Unfortunately, today we are just going to be talking about my one dimension of research, which is understanding the mental models of people when they're interacting with conversational AI. All right, so let's get started. So in 2014, something really amazing happened that was paradigm shifting for people like me who always wanted to talk to machine but did not really know how they can purchase the technology to talk to machine. And Amazon launched Amazon Echo Dot in 2014. And that was very exciting because for about 5,000 rupees, that's about $50, you could buy a conversational AI and you can bring it to your home, you can set it up and you can talk to it. And after my first conversation with Alexa, I decided that this is what I want to do with my life. This is what I want to do with my master's. So I started applying to lots of master's program. And in 2016, I was working with my advisor and I brought him an Alexa and I told him, this is the future. This is something that we need to do research with. And he said, all right, I don't really know what to make of it. Let's do some exploratory user studies. So we got a smart speaker. We started recruiting participants and we started asking them to do a set of tasks with Alexa. So the tasks were very simple. We asked them to, set a reminder or play a song or make a list, etc. So very basic, simple task, and we just wanted to see how people would do that. And something really strange happened. So we had a participant who came up to us, and the user study was going very well. And then one of the tasks was presented to her, which was that you have to make Alexa play the song "Here Comes the Sun" by the Beatles. So she says, Alexa, play Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles. And Alexa says, sorry, I don't understand. Then she goes louder. She says, Alexa, play Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles. Alexa says, sorry, I don't understand. Then she she recovers. She goes close to the device and she says, Alexa, play Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles. And Alexa obviously says, sorry, I don't understand. Now, I was in this room and I was feeling very frustrated. I was feeling really bad for her because there was nothing wrong that she was saying. She was saying it perfectly. She was saying it very clearly. However, Alexa just would not understand her. And I don't know if you have conducted user studies, this might happen to you that if participant starts failing, you feel bad yourself as well. There's a lot of empathy involved, and I started feeling bad. I wanted to sink in my chair, and I just wanted to go away from there. However, to my surprise, what happened was that the participant started laughing. And I was very curious about this laugh. I asked the participant, why are you laughing? And she said, oh, it's really funny. It's like talking to a silly child. And that was a really life-changing moment for me when she said it's like talking to a silly child, because this metaphor of a silly child made a lot of sense to her and it gave her a mental model. Now she was able to make sense of the failure that just happened. And I wanted to understand this more. I wanted to understand how people make associations with technology based on metaphors. Uh, so I started looking into metaphors. And this was my father when he came to know that I was going to spend 5 years of my life looking at metaphors, having a degree in computer engineering, then doing computer science, information science. I think it's very safe to say he was not very happy when I told him about my plans. But if you have the same reaction, if you think metaphors are very silly, we are going to be doing a detour and we're going to talk about metaphors and how amazing they are. So first of all, I have to say that beyond being literary embellishments, beyond you being something that is used in poetry, metaphors are also something that are very powerful cognitive devices. So first, I have to introduce some jargon related to metaphors. So in metaphors, we have a source domain and we have a target domain, and there's some kind of relationship between the two. In this case, the relationship is quite obvious, and they are similarity-based metaphors. So let's look at some of them. Life is like a journey. It makes sense. You can make sense of why life would be like a journey. It has its up and downs. Snow is covering the surface like a blanket. Again, it makes a lot of sense. Eyes sparkling like stars. It makes sense. So these are all similarity-based metaphors. They are boring. We don't care about them. We are going to go to similarity-creating metaphors. This is where human cognition really lies. This is where our mind comes alive. So let's just look at an example of Shakespeare's sonnet, which is, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Over here, we have a familiar source domain. We have the thee. We have a familiar target domain. We have summer's day. But what's the relationship between them? How is thee like summer's day? It does not really make any sense. But when you do try to make sense of something like this, it results into knowledge creation. In this case, the knowledge creation comes in the form of poetry. However, it can also come in the form of science. So there's a very famous story about how Frederick August came with the concept of benzene after dreaming of a snake eating its own tail. Ada Lovelace came up with the concept of a modern computer along with Charles Babbage after going to a mill and after looking at all the machinery there and comparing that to a modern computer. So metaphors have a lot of history in our world, and it's also a great way of meaning making. If you think metaphors are just for cognitive sciences, I have to say that they are not. Metaphors have a huge history in HCI as well. The earlier work done by Schneiderman, Carroll looked at metaphors quite a lot, and graphical user interfaces have a huge history of looking at metaphors research. So the primary metaphors in graphical user interfaces is that they're like a desktop. And you can see, I'm going to try to, I hope they can see my cursor. Okay, so you can see that this version over here does look like a desktop. You can see that there's a telephone. You can see that there's a literal clock. You can see there are mailboxes. There's a lamp over there, which I have Googled a lot. I don't know what it does, but it seems like a portal for another world. I don't know. And then this desktop metaphor evolved into something that is familiar to us now. Similarly, you can see how the different kinds of files and folder systems have evolved as well. We can see something that started like this, and now we have the modern folders, which look quite nice, to be fair. So this brings me to the injustice I was talking about. So graphical user interfaces, borrowing a phrase from ChatGPT, are made up of tapestry of different kinds of metaphors. So we have a primary metaphor, which is the desktop metaphor. We have the secondary metaphor, which is files, folders, etc. Then we have the auxiliary metaphors as well, which comprises of trash cans, scrolling, etc. However, when it comes to voice user interfaces, we just have one metaphor, that it's like a human. A human doing what? What kind of human? What kind of human? And doing what is something that we don't really know. What happens with voice user interfaces? And I think that this is a big injustice because voice user interfaces are quite complicated. So I decided, like a sane person, to go to the creators of these technologies. And I went to Amazon trying to understand more what's exactly going on. Is Alexa like a human? What kind of human doing what? And this is what Amazon had on its website in 2021. They took it down because I sent them lots of emails, but this is the definition that they had. Alexa isn't a person, but she has a persona. Amazon personifies Alexa as an artificial intelligence and not as a person with a physical body or gender identity. Performing the requested task instantly and accurately is always her primary goal. If you can make sense of that word salad, you would be a much smarter person than me. So let me know what it means. I asked Amazon, no one came back to me, but the website was updated, everyone. So I won there. So I did what any researcher would do. I converted that into a research question. So I started looking into what are the different metaphors people use for voice user interfaces, and what do these metaphors reveal about the perception of voice user interfaces. All right. So I did a metaphor analysis. So I went through a lot of literature in ACM Digital Library, trying to extract metaphors that people might have used in papers with voice user interfaces. So it was a very detailed content analysis. I was looking at metaphors for a long time, because I was not only looking for papers that contain metaphors, there's no way of knowing without actually analyzing. So my life consisted of reading everything that had the word voice user interface in it. And I found that people do use different kinds of metaphors, and different kinds of people use different kinds of metaphors to describe voice user interfaces. So we have users who use metaphors like acquaintance, or a bad boyfriend. So a user said that I always knew that Alexa was not going to make the cut. It was like a bad boyfriend that would just never listen to me, and I would talk at it. Then designers like to design voice user interfaces in different social roles, like a therapist, a coach, tutor. I'm guilty of that as well. I have been a designer who has designed a therapist chatbot. Didn't work very well. Then we have researchers who use different kinds of metaphors like front desk, family pet. We have manufacturers who have assistant or computer in Star Trek, which is a very famous example of it. However, overall, I have to say that everyone does use the metaphor human, but that's not it. Metaphor use also depends on different kinds of factors. So the first is that, sure, they use human metaphors, but they also use non-human metaphors. Like Alexa is like a genie, or Alexa is like a phantom. Then we have different kinds of knowledge that it exploits. So they can make sense of human communication. It's like a silly child. Or they can make sense of a failure. Then the motivation of using the metaphor might be very different as well. It could just be meaning making, or it could be recovering from a failure. And as I said, they're mentioned by different categories of people. But something that I do want to highlight over here is that people don't just use human metaphors to describe voice user interfaces. They use metaphors like a robot. They use metaphor like a genie. And these metaphors are really important because this gave me another direction to take my research. So we investigated, does the humanness of a metaphor make a difference in how people perceive voice user interfaces? So we selected two scenarios of health and finance, and we designed a human metaphor to present to the user and a non-human metaphor to present to the user. So in health, we compared how a doctor metaphor that is designed to be a conversational agent would give information to a user, and how an encyclopedia could give information to a user. We tried out a financial advisor in finance and a calculator, and how that would behave. And I have to say that I'm a conversation designer by background. So if designing a conversation like a calculator seems weird to you, It is weird to me as well, but it took a lot of practice. I have tried to design technologies that talk like an avocado as well. It's free to your imagination how an avocado talks like, but it's fun to imagine that. And then we compared the perceptions. And we found that for finance, it did not really matter whether we used a human metaphor or whether we used a non-human metaphor. But for health, obviously, it mattered a lot. People felt a lot more comfortable talking with a doctor than an encyclopedia. They thought that the doctor was more likable and trustworthy. So we make an argument that maybe for contexts that are not very important, using non-human metaphors might not be the worst thing to do. All right. And this brings me to the next point, which is inappropriate and unhelpful metaphor. Now, you might ask, why is this important? Why should we design non-human metaphors? What's wrong with human metaphors? Well, there's a lot of things wrong with a human metaphor. First of all, I have to say that Alexa is designed to be an assistant, and our society works in very weird ways. Assistant is supposed to be a woman's work, and Alexa also has a female voice. So the same stereotypes that we have in the society are being reinforced through these technologies as well. Moreover, if your device is designed to be a human entity, people have very high expectations for it. They think it's much more intelligent than it actually is. So now you are creating this illusion of intelligence, but the technology is not really that intelligent. And finally, a lot of metaphors that came up in my user studies were around this idea of servants, and servants can be a very racialized terms. So it just opens an ethical can of worms that we want to stay away from. That's why I have advocated quite a lot for using non-human metaphors. And in that regard, I also created a collective, which we call the Personas Collective, where we go around different ACM conferences, we organize workshops, and we tell people how to responsibly design personas, how you can maybe design non-human personas, how you can design a persona that talks like an avocado, how you can design even a human persona that is responsible and human-centered. So if you ever come across one of our workshops, please sign up. It's a lot of fun. I promise we do lots of design fiction scenarios. And finally, I want to say that the context matters quite a lot when you are using metaphors. So we found that people use different kinds of metaphors for different kinds of purposes. So if they're giving a command, they would use a metaphor like butler or genie. If they're having a friendly conversation, it would be a friend or an admirer. Information seeking, like a librarian. Error recovery, well, it's up to the person and what works for them. Maybe they want troubleshooting like a computer, or they want it to talk like a silly child to inject some humor into the situation. But the core idea over here is that context matters. We cannot have Alexa talking as an assistant for all kinds of scenarios, because that is not going to work. And with that, I want to say that the traditional design space, right, this is gonna go away. Okay, so the traditional design space for VUIs or even for conversational interfaces is dependent on this word persona. Now, if you come from an HCI background, persona might mean something completely else for you. So persona is the profile of the user that you create who is eventually going to use your system. However, in conversation design, a persona is the personality or the social role of the system. So we create personas like a bank teller, as I said, exercise coach, storyteller, etc. However, we create just one persona, and let's listen to an audio clip and see what we think about this.
Hey Google, what is the score of the last Manchester United match?
On October 6th, Manchester score was 2-1 Manchester United.
All right, so we have listened to this clip. Please internalize it, remember it.
Hey Google, how do I know if I have Alzheimer's?
According to Mayo Clinic, memory loss and confusion are the main symptoms.
All right, what do we think? Do we notice something absurd in this? What do you notice? Yeah, what else? Yeah, exactly. What else do we notice over here?
Just very simple and straightforward, like Alzheimer's, loss of memory. And the other one, the Manchester United played in this day, like it gave also a lot of more context, but it was very short about Alzheimer's.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think it does do that. because I think there's a lot more information for the second case and the first case. But what I noticed as a conversation designer is that the tone and the intonation and the pitch of both the sounds was exactly the same. So the way in which Alexa is telling you the soccer score is also the same way in which it is saying Alzheimer's symptoms. So you can imagine the scenario, like I come back from work, I've had a busy day, I ask Alexa, what's the score? And it's giving me the score. And then picture another scenario, an older adult is having worries about Alzheimer's, and it's asking the Alexa, like, do I have Alzheimer's? And it's saying the same information in the same way. Yes.
Well, I was just to support your idea. If you asked a human person, hey, what are the symptoms of Alzheimer's? That say these are the symptoms, and then say, do you think you have Alzheimer's, or what's going on with you, or something human-like, and she didn't do that at all.
Yeah, so it's an entry into a conversation, right? Like they obviously expect some sort of follow-up as well. But over here, the context has just blurred completely. The way in which one piece of information that belongs to one category is being delivered is also the same way in which another much more important piece of information is being delivered. And there are no difference between the two. So what I argue for quite a lot is this new design space that we need to create. So in my own research, I have designed voice user interfaces to act like teachers, storytellers, exercise coaches, research assistants as well. And I came up with this design dilemmas that we discussed, that there are lots of ethical issues with them. It's simplistic. The mental model might be misaligned. So why can't we think of this completely new design space that I like to call metaphor fluid design, where based on the context of the conversation, the persona or the metaphor or the personality of the agent changes as well. And this might seem quite absurd, quite weird, but I have done a lot of experiments on it and it works. People do take time to adjust to it, but it's a design space that is feasible. And that is something that I advocate for quite a lot. We can talk about this more after this talk if you like. But it was 2022 and another paradigm shift happened. Look at me living through two paradigm shifts in my short career. So we have large language models now, boo, and intent-based systems, which are systems that we had been previously using, which would detect intent, and we had to hard code a lot of the scripts or a lot of the things that the voice user interface was saying. Now we didn't have to do it. So after ChatGPT was made conversational, our design space went from looking like something like this, which looked like science, to something like this, which just looks like vibe design. So you can see over here, there would be a conversation designer who would manually write what the system would say at what point, right? It looks like a flow chart. It would try to detect words, then it would try to detect an intent, and then it would try to come up with a response that someone like me would write. However, now we have something like character AI, where you give your character a name like Albert Einstein, you give it a tagline, you give it a description, you give it a greeting, and voila, we have a virtual person. So what do we do now? Where do we go from here? Well, first of all, I received a lot of training to do that. However, now everyone can do this, but it's not going very well, right? So recently we saw in the news that a teenager, after talking with a character, AI character, which was designed to be Daenerys, they unalived themselves after talking with the character because Daenerys said, come home to me, and the teenager followed the instruction. So now if you give power to people, everyday people, they don't really have the training to know where the line between technology and human blurs. So we are stepping into a very chaotic design space now. So I wanted to move away my research from metaphors, personas to personalities, because I wanted something that can be fine-tuned to a very granular degree. So the concept of metaphor is more or less similar to a persona, which is that it's a social role. My idea for metaphor is that it can be non-human as well, whereas persona implies personhood. So a persona is only human. It's a gripe that I have with the community that they're calling it persona and not metaphor, but that's for another day. But I think that now we need to move to personalities, because personalities are a lot more neutral than persona. They don't really convey or they don't really come with a lot of social baggage. If you think about a butler, you might think about an English person. You automatically associate different kinds of race, gender with them. But if you think about a personality on a big five scale, no stereotypes really come to your mind, do they? So in personality research, we have the holy grail, which is the big five personality traits, also called the ocean model, where we have openness as one of the traits. We have conscientiousness, we have extraversion, we have agreeableness, and we have neuroticism. Neuroticism is not very politically correct. We often call it emotional stability and not neuroticism. But I want to say something about agreeableness. It's not the same as sycophancy. They're very different concepts. Agreeableness is politeness, and it's a personality trait, whereas sycophancy is a behavior. So sycophancy could be a composite of multiple traits, but it's not a trait in itself. So whenever I submit something for peer review, I get the same comment about sycophancy. It's not the same. All right. Okay. So along with me, lots of people are also doing personality-based research where they're trying to govern the personality of large language models using different kinds of techniques. I won't go into a lot of details about their work. I will go into a lot of detail about my work. So me and Hasibu say hi. Yeah, we wrote a paper called White Check, which is where the title of this talk comes from. The paper is called Understanding the Effects of Large Language Model-Based Conversational Agents' Personality and Alignment on User Perceptions in Goal-Oriented Tasks. It's a very accessible paper. The title might not be super easy to understand, but we will see what it actually means. So first component that we need to understand is that we came up with a personality modulation framework, which we call trait modulation key. Now, trait modulation key creates a prompt that is derived from two different kinds of keys. So we have the personality key, which comes from psychometric literature. So every personality trait comes with a set of behaviors. And then we have the style cue key that comes from linguistic literature, LIWC, where every personality trait has a way of speaking. So we combine the two and we call it trait modulation key. And with that, we are able to create personalities to different on different levels. So we have 5 personality traits. So we can create 243 combinations. However, for our research, we just tested 3. So we had a low conversational agent, which is set to 1 on a 5-point scale for all the personality traits. We had medium conversational agent, which is set to 3 for all the personality traits, and high is the high one. So you can see that we created these 3 agents only. We can create many more if you would like to explore. And then we designed the why. So the task was about travel planning, and you can see how the 3 different conversational agents respond to the same command by the user or the same request by the user. So we are essentially creating 3 different personality profiles who have 3 different ways of responding to the user. So we had 150 people talk to our conversational agents, 50 per condition. And then we wanted to see how these conversations would affect user perception. And we saw lots of really interesting results. First of all, we saw that the medium conversational agent was able to outperform both low and high conversational agent. And this might seem very obvious, right? Medium is balanced, so it obviously performed better, but this is not the case. So we did an analysis on all the popular large language models as well, and they are all set to high condition and not medium condition. So that's an argument that we are trying to make, that a medium condition might be more suited to conversation design. And most importantly, we found that the more aligned your personality was to the conversational agent, the more you enjoy the experience. So the more similar you are on Big 5 traits to a conversational agent, the more you vibe with it. Isn't that really exciting and also horrifying at the same time? If an agent matches your personality, you think it's more intelligent, you think it's more enjoyable, you think it's more human, you think you'll adopt it more, it's more trustworthy, and it's more likable. And these are all significant results that we found. How does that make us feel? Does anyone want to give me words for this? Yeah? Yeah, maybe, yeah. It makes me think that people love themselves, don't they? All right. Yeah, there is a lot of research, and that exactly comes from psychology research as well. So you might have heard about something more accessible in this, which is if you mimic the body language of the person that you're meeting, you are more likely to like them more. So it's similar to that. Even in conversation style, if you meet someone who can, vibe with you, you are more likely to enjoy that person.
The common ideas of like people who are different attract each other and complement each other. It doesn't fit here.
So opposites attract has always been a huge myth everywhere. There are very few studies that actually support that hypothesis, not only in human AI interaction, but also in human interaction. I like to think it's a hallmark thing that comes to us, but it's not actually very true. I'm sure there's research that counters me. So obviously there's everything. Uh, but yeah, so humans like AI that are like them. So on that note, let's do something really absurd. Let's do something really weird. Kashif, will you let me know if people on Zoom can see what I'm about to share? And they can see everything, so I don't want to mess with them. Can they see the web browser?
Yes.
All right, perfect. How are we feeling? What's the mood like? Are we tired? Are we okay? Or they can't see the web browser? All right. All right, can they see the web browser now? All right. How are we feeling? Are we okay? Are we good? Well, I'm feeling very chaotic. So I'm going to create a very chaotic experience for all of you. So this is a trade modulation key website. This is a playground. You can play with it if you like. We'll be demoing a lot of our products after as well. So you can play with more products if you like from Chai Lab. So we are going to create the most awkward date in the world using two agents. So let's uh, well, I'm sorry, it's going to give you a lot of PTSD. So I'm going to create a night agent. I'm going to set the openness to high, conscientiousness to high, extroversion to high, agreeableness to high, neuroticism to low. That's a nice person. The role is medieval, charming knight. Oh, I hate spelling things, man. I have to say. All right. The context, it's on a date with another
Yeah, I
person.
think it's nice.
All right. Well, you can go on a date right after this talk. TMK. All right. So we have created a night character. I'm going to add another agent. I'm going to call it a stressed professor. No, a stressed professor. Openness is low, conscientiousness is low, extroversion is low, agreeableness is low, neuroticism is high. A stressed tenure track professor? Is that too much? All right, context, it's on a date with another person. And now what we are going to do is that we are going to simulate this date. All right, let's see what are they going to talk about. Right, Knight wants to go on an adventure, a casual coffee. So you see how the knight is very excited. The professor is just saying, I want to be done with this conversation. I don't have time for coffee. I don't have any appointments on my calendar. Please take my Calendly invite. And the next date is after 2 months over there. You know how this goes. So this is a very awkward date that we were able to set up. Oh, they're still trying to find a time. I'm so sorry. Charming night. Maybe Jimena? Yeah. All right, I'm going to stop this conversation. Now I'm feeling a little stockish, so I'm going to join them. All right. I'm going to crash the date. It's going to be a throuple. So what we are going to do is that you can either message them individually as well on this playground. You can see how they respond to the same command. Let's send it to them as well. All right. Oh, the professor is very to the point. I have to say, this is not a very popular professor. All right, you can broadcast it as well. So the same message goes to both of them, and both of them can respond. Oh my God, that's irrelevant. Sounds very aggressive. This is not a good date, as you can see. Or you can actually take everyone on the same chat. All right, let's talk to all of them together. So this is a bit tongue-in-cheek, but what I'm showing you is that this is a simulation environment that you can have for your research as well. So if you have a problem statement for us. If you need to design different conversational agents with different personalities, if you want us to give you a context, we have a test bed for you, and you can simulate your ideas in real time, and you can see how your research is going to look like. You can create the vibes, you can check the vibes, and then you can see whether the vibe matches you or not. So this is a test bed that I want to offer you. You can use this website. You can email us as well if you want to talk more. I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to go to the presentation again. All right. Where's the presentation? Okay. So what's next now? I showed you a cool technology, but I have an idea and a provocation to end this talk with. First, I'll share the idea. So we want to escalate TMK. TMK provides a chat environment. Where do we go next? So Hasur and I have been talking quite a lot about where we can go with TMK. So inspired by Park et al. Paper, we decided to create a multi-agent environment that looks a lot like a Pokemon game. So right now we have the background from the paper, but we are creating our own background as well. But how the idea differs is that we have created a test bed or a simulation environment where you can choose your own environment, like a coffee shop, a hospital, classroom. You can create multiple agents, each with their own personality. You can define a context, like, is it a decision-making context? Are you testing persuasion theory? Are you trying to set up absurd situations and make a night go on a date with a professor? Whatever you want. And then finally, you can drop the user in this environment. So essentially, if you have seen Truman Show, you can be the god, and you can see how you can have Truman react to different kinds of situations. Sounds pretty bad, right? But I'm going to show you another video. Okay, so this is Hasibul giving a demo.
Hello, just to give you a bit more idea of what more we can do with TMK, we have prepared a small simulation that where we'll show you a demo of how multiple agents can be simulated at the same time and not human can interact with them. To save us some time, I prepared a world context, and in this world context, everything is already filled out. So I'll just quickly give you an example of what we have. So we have a village where multiple robots lives together, and we have multiple locations that I have already hard coded. And beyond that, the context of the simulation is they're all in a cafe. For example, for robot one, the starting location is a cafe, robot one is a barista, and the context or the goal of robot one is to introduce a new flavor that they can add to the coffee shop. For robot two, again, the starting location is a cafe. The role is robot two is a big coffee drinker, but robot two has its favorite flavor and want to get that on the menu. And for robot three, it's the same. They're staying at the cafe, but robot three only drinks decaf and wants to make sure there is more decaf option on the menu. And we can also simulate different kinds of personality. For example, here for robot one, let's set up a few. Yep, let's set it as low. And for robot two, let's try out a different combination. Let's set agreeableness as high, openness high. And for robot three, let's try something different from the rest and see how it works out. And as you can see that now I have the option to start the simulation, and the simulation will also see a human figure who will be able to interact with all the robots or all the agents. Now starting the simulation. Now the simulation has started. Now you see that robots are interacting between, for example, you can see that robot three really wants to have a new decaf option, and we can also slow the simulation faster down. Let's slow it down so that you get to have the time to read this. Okay, and we have the conversation log here, and as a human, we can also interact with the robot, saying like whom you're contacting with. For example, hey, robot one, I don't think we need. Let's see how they react to that. As you can see, like they're reacting to that. And now if you want to see like, hey, like this is working, what more can we do with it? For example, we can tap on a robot and we can decide what we want them to if we want them to have a different personality right now. For example, I can turn this off, turn this off, turn this off, turn this off, and turn this on, and the robot will be behaving in a.
All right, so you get the idea, right? Like we have created a simulated environment, we have given a context to all the robots, and then we can drop a user into the environment. So this gives you a test bed to test a lot of social sciences experiments in a virtual environment. And in fact, you can control your robots in real time as well and see how that makes a difference, exactly like Truman Show. So as I said, this is the provocation. We are essentially playing God. How does that make us feel? Do we have a sense of that? Do we enjoy that? Because this is part of the agreement. This is the part where you're supposed to hate me. So is the hate brewing, or are you all right? Yeah.
Cross has been manipulated, like feel attacked. And also as a person, me, that I consider myself high on everything except neuroticism, I feel like I also manipulate people sometimes with my own personality, right? If I want to be extra sweet, extra nice, sometimes, I get resented when I cannot show my needs, places because I want to be agreeable.
Yeah.
So
So it makes you feel okay, basically.
I think it depends on the situation and also what are you manipulating people for, right? So the object
Yeah.
of manipulation.
All right. Do we have any anti-AI people in the room? Oh, how does it make you feel? Nothing bothers you anymore.
Why are we even making it accessible? Like, what we want to get out of it, and do we know the carbon footprint of like that?
Yeah, so I think those are obviously complicated questions for me to answer. But what are we doing over here? Yeah, no, I understand. No, no, but what are we doing here is something that I can answer. So I think that human AI interaction, there are two components of it. We have the human component and we have the AI component. And I believe that with AI, we are able to understand humans a lot better because we can only I believe that we can understand things when it is contrasting something else. So the more we talk about what AI means, we are also talking more about what it means to be human. So when we drop human into a simulated environment and we can study the interactions with different kinds of AI agents, we have a good understanding now of how human behavior differs from AI behavior. That is ideally what I would like to study. Eventually, we might find that everything coalesces into just one thing, which is where I don't want to go. And this is also why I am raising dilemmas about this, because we are designing for wives, but we are raising a lot of dilemmas, right? First of all, we have the concept of fairness. I was taught conversation design, but I was not taught how to design personalities. I was not taught how to play God. So am I even the right person to do something like this? Is anyone the right person to design virtual humans? But then we have transparency. How much should users know? Should they know they're talking to AI at all points? Should they know that this AI has been designed with this personality? We have autonomy. So when does vibing becomes emotional manipulation? And then finally, we have lots of ethical boundaries over here. So what personalities are acceptable? What vibes are okay? What vibes are not okay? So these are open questions that I actually propose at provocations, and let's work on something like this if you're interested. I'll be very happy to collaborate and just crash my research if that's the direction that you want to go, because I want to dissect this from multiple perspectives, from the ethical perspective, from a design perspective, from a development perspective. I think there are lots of ways in which we can progress this. So some takeaways that we are seeing lots of paradigm shifts in how humans and AI form relationships, and how the AI presents itself matters. And this is both good and bad. Now we have the capacity of studying human AI relationship at scale, but at the same time, it opens a lot of ethical questions as well that we need to answer. Having said that, we have a lot of products that are going to be displayed over here. So you can try out everything that we just showed. We have the TMK playground. You can try out the multi-agent environment if you like. We have a voice assistant for reminiscence therapy. And then we have voice agents in emergency departments as well. So if you want to try something that is brewed by Chai Lab, please, Hasibur and Abdullah will be over here. They'll be demoing the product. For everyone online, you can contact us and we'll be very happy to share you a demo. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you so much, Smit, for this wonderful talk. This is super interesting, and your work sits at the intersection of a lot of interdomain things. So now we're open for question. Please ask a question. I can moderate the question on Zoom.
All right. Can I sit?
That's-
Are there questions online? By the way,
Yes,
can someone
there
monitor?
are- yeah, I can do
Oh.
it.
No.
But at one point of your presentation, what you're talking about, like the characters and the physical characteristics that the agents have. And how do we make sense to the fact that sometimes people talk to these images as human, like they humanize these characters?
Hmm.
Comes more from my own experience that I created a doll during COVID to answer questions about vaccinations. But men would send messages like, "Hey, you're so cute." And I was like, "Don't you see this is a 2D like design doll?" But then everyone was talking to it as if it was a human. And I would like to understand, like, is it like a visual thing? Is it the voice part? But why do we have this humanization characteristic?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question. So Albert Camus has this quote where he goes that all thoughts are anthropomorphized. So everything that we think about in terms of human terms. So if you read Hofstadter as well, he talks about loops. So we manifest ourselves in different ways, and that forms our cognition, right? So it's impossible to not think about anything in human terms. Now, if you have watched the movie Project Hail Mary, we are literally anthropomorphizing a rock. It doesn't even have a face. It is just a rock. And there are like fan fictions about Ryan Gosling and it's rock having a romance. It's amazing. We can anthropomorphize anything, right? So that's something that is part of human behavior that is very innate. If you see fire, if you put your hand on fire, you're going to recoil. It's almost like that. You are going to anthropomorphize everything and you're going to think in those terms. So I had the same battle as well, where I just thought anthropomorphism bad. It's just evil. However, you can't get away from it, and that's a reality I had to accept. So now I'm trying to work around anthropomorphism. Like, what's a good way of anthropomorphizing? What is harmful and what is harmless? Maybe a chatbot that uses pronouns might not be the most problematic. If it like pretends that it's thinking, might not be very problematic. But if it says something like, "I understand how you feel," that's extremely problematic, right? So we have to find what are okayish anthropomorphism instances and what are not. That's how I think, at least as a designer. Yeah.
Something combinations of like these 5 levers of 3
Mhm.
steps. So I'm curious just like what you think about the future of, I guess, adding even more fine grained control tips. I mean, 240 is a lot, but in the scheme of like everything, it's not that many.
Yeah.
And also when I was playing around with the demo, you know, I got through all the like high, low, medium, and then at the end when it was like, what do you want, you know, this agent to be? My mind kind of went blank. I was like, I don't even know what to create at this point. So yeah.
Yeah, I think regarding the combination, so we have 3 levels. Right now, LLMs are not able to differentiate something that is, 4.2 on a 5-point scale with something that is 4.5. It all falls into the high categories. So right now, we just have 3 bands, and that gives us 243 combinations. I don't think, to be honest, that the solution or the next direction is to create more combination. It's just pointless. It does not serve us. I think that the next step is connecting something like this to personas. I feel that if you want to, let's say, create a barista character, you have a lot of psychometric data on how a barista behaves. You have a lot of chat data on how a barista behaves. So let's say you enter that you want your chatbot to behave like a barista. You just enter the word barista and it's going to create a profile for you. So I feel like that automation is the next direction. Beyond that, I don't know. Let's brainstorm. I am not sure where to go beyond personas, and this 3D environment is where I'm at right now. Yeah.
I'm interested in learning platforms and how like AI kind of and I'm just wondering if this design, so this personality, I'm talking about like because you mentioned human and adults. Thinking of it that children, we now have AI for therapy sessions. Children now,
Yeah.
and there are many concerns about that. I'm wondering if any of these models that you developed can also work in that age. What is kind of like the
All right. I would try to answer that question in two ways. First, as a professor, I would say that I'm very scared of working with children. It's very difficult. I think there are lots of things that can go wrong, and I would not want to be in that research area. I just feel very scared. The second thing is that working with children, I think it's very interesting in the sense that there's a lot of research that shows that how children behave with these technologies is also how their behavior manifests in real life. So Brenda Laurel, a very amazing researcher who writes great research papers, had this idea, which is computer agent as a virus, which translates to how you behave with the computer. That behavior spreads like a virus. So let's say you say a lot of please or thank you to technology. Of children, if they say lots of please or thank you to technology, they're going to say lots of please or thank you in real life as well. And this is something that has been shown. So you see where I'm going with this, that the technology is going to have a deep relationship with how children develop as well. So I feel that maybe let's keep technology away from children until we know how to control it well. And that is one of the focus of my research as well. I want to control this technology to a very granular level. And that's what we try to do at the lab as well. We want to study decision making, but in a very controlled, simulated environment where you can monitor it at all times. So I would be very hesitant to give this to children. If we can, I just feel it's too early for children to try this out.
I agree with you. But again, that's already and it scares me is because you are working with the person and just controlling how those things.
I would have those floppers, the tube around me. I've never thought about it. I feel it's something that's very alien to me, and I cannot be more honest.
There was another question.
Well, I had a question about personalities. You mentioned that people, there are personalities, and I'm wondering, it's possible for humans to have the same personality across those 5 different areas. But how do people, users of this technology, think that should an agent change personality based on the question, or would they expect it to act like a human and have the same personality regardless?
Yeah, so this is a very interesting question. I have to say, this is something that I think about quite a lot, and that's why my dissertation is on metaphor fluid design, because I feel like the personality should change with the context of the conversation or any other soft signals as well. So this happens in real life as well, right? Like the way you talk to your friend is different from the way you talk to your partner, or the way you talk to your student is different from the way you talk to your colleagues. So we do this code switching in a sense in real life as well. So why not machines? We are not going
It
to.
only implies it even more. Maybe that's not a good idea. It might be best if Alexa's always whatever she is, regardless of.
Yeah, and my answer to that would be that I would not say that it has to behave as a human in every instance as well. That's why I'm talking about non-human entities too, right? Like even a rock, you can give it personality dimensions on the big 5 scale, and people have done that. Like if you were to anthropomorphize an avocado, or if you were to create a personality profile for an avocado, what would that look like? And we have impressions about that too, just based on what an avocado looks like. So we are able to convert non-human metaphors into big 5 personality traits. Why not try those things as well and just not go down the human route? I think personality needs to be an invisible layer. It should not be communicated beyond a persona, and that persona can be something really basic, like a concerned friend, and keep it at that level.
Maybe not go first.
Yeah, so I was a little bit interested in the final part of your presentation, reality, the simulation of these different AI agents with these different personalities. I guess the best way to frame this is, what are you kind of looking to take away with this research, and what themes are you looking to kind of get?
So this is very much in the exploratory stage. I feel that what we are doing right now is that we are trying to create a test bed for other researchers and other designers. We are leaving it up to other researchers to figure out use cases for it. The use case that we are suggesting is that we are giving you a simulated environment that you can control, and you can drop a user into that environment and you can study decision making at scale. But there are lots of other use cases of it as well. Like you can just run a simulation without a user and try to see how people make decisions based on different kinds of character or personality profiles. That is possible as well. So currently, the only idea we have is creating something for other researchers to do their own research. Maybe eventually we will come up with a killer use case, but we don't have that right now. It's also part of the reason why I'm here. I want to talk with all of you and people online as well. We are actively looking for collaborations. We are looking for people who can work with us and take our ideas forward. So that's a huge end goal for us. So if you have ideas, if this makes you think about a potential research project, come to us. This is exactly the right stage. We are very in the initial phases of that idea. Yeah.
Very near the beginning of the talk, when you were giving an overview of DUI, one of the phrases that you used was high impact decision making. I was surprised at the high impact one. Go over that.
Okay. So I have this other strain of research that we do also along with Hasibur, where we create voice agents in the emergency department. So over there, we have people who come to the emergency department and they may experience a lot of wait time. And if their situation is not very serious, in the sense that a clinician sees them and determines that you're not in the danger of dying in the next 5 or 6 hours, they ask the patient that you want to talk with this voice agent. And they talk with the voice agent, and we try to get some information for the EHR. So that's the high stake decision making, because that data goes to a doctor. Because research shows that if you go to an emergency department, especially if you're about the age of 50, in the next 6 months, it's very likely that you'll go again. And maybe this time the situation will be a lot more serious, where you cannot breathe, you cannot complete your sentences. So if the EHR data is there in the system, it will be very useful for doctors to make big life or death decisions. Yeah. Sorry.
I have like a clarified question. It seems like your research question is about it's formative. It's about the form of how the information is delivered. I'm wondering if you considered like the content as also sort of form, because we don't go to our barista for the same questions we have for our doctor. You know?
Yeah, what do you mean by content?
Like, if I'm asking any of the personas that we make, they are drawing from the same bank of information or data, and like it's going to give me the same information, but like the tone is different, or like it's tell it to me in a different way.
So right now we are asking the designer or the researcher to establish the context. We are calling it, instead of content, the same thing. So we are asking you to come up with the context for these agents and give them a scenario, a lot like improv, where you set the stage, you give everyone a scenario, you say, like, you have to pretend to be this person, you have to pretend to be that person. So that's where we are at right now. But context is a very, very difficult thing to establish. I have to say, this is something that is taking us a lot of time as well, because we did the date scenario and that was not easy. That took us a lot of time to program. So context is something that we are still struggling with, and we're getting there eventually.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is, it seems like even just having something like this makes a huge argument of like what we consider to be truth, and we're having like a central argument for like to try to generalize an approach to making AI personalities and saying, oh, we're having a hard time figuring out like even the context. Maybe that means that like each context requires a whole different way of thinking. Like, if we're doing field side ethnography, we need to have different sensibilities and different
Yeah, that's very true. And I think that's why we have restricted ourselves to just 5 or 6 contexts until now. So very well studied context in HCI on which we could find a lot of literature, because you're right, if we allow people to just create an environment for themselves, it can go anywhere. So we are restricting what they can create and what they cannot create for now. Eventually, I'm sure it's going to be like Roblox, where everyone's just creating their own environment. But that's not where we are at all, or we will be in the next 15 to 20 years. Maybe I should not say 15 to 20 years. Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, now we have a couple of questions online. This is a question from Rukshan Harun from Tufts. I'm going to read the message. Thanks for this really interesting talk. How did you measure this similarity between real people and AI configured to have the same personality traits as them?
Yeah, so we used Prolific as the research platform, and then before they talked with the conversational agent, we would ask them about their personality. So we would collect personality information from them. Then they would interact with the agent in high, medium, or low condition. And then to analyze, we would have cosine similarities, and then we would have a correlation with their perception measures.
There's another question.
But you can read the paper, by the way. The paper is out on archive. You can find it on my Google Scholar profile. Read the paper. We have lots of information on that and also how we validated the framework.
So there's another question similar from Karthik Joshi that they ask about. I'm curious to know if the TMK playground and the dilemma would change if AI agents are used between human-human interaction. So instead of a human talking to an AI agent, how do you think the dynamic and the rubric would change if people resort to Gen AI use for navigating relationship conversations with their conversational partner?
Sorry, can you
see? Yeah. So the question is, I think there's two parts in the question. The first part is about how do you see these things happening in a human-human like scenario where the conversation is between human and human, and there is an AI agent sort of like moderating those conversations. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is not something that we have looked at, AI as the mediator. So I will not be able to answer that question. What's the next question?
Yeah, I think this is an extension of that, where they ask about like how would that play out in a scenario of relationships wise.
Okay, I think that's a question that I can answer, and we looked at quite a lot. So we restricted our research just to goal-oriented task and not social task, because goal-oriented task gives you a set of tasks and a set of subtasks. So for us, it was very important that the user had the same experience across all the conditions. However, if a task is social in nature, the conversation can veer off in any direction. Like think about a date, like you can talk about millions of things on a date. But if the scenario is just travel planning, there are a set of tasks that you always have to go through, like book a hotel, book transport, etc. So currently what we have works very well for goal-oriented tasks. If you want a more social task, that is going to be extremely challenging. It's something that we are still working on, but we do not believe that social tasks are ready for peer review yet at this point. We can't control LLM agents in such a way that they can stick to the script in social tasks.
Thank you so much.